Welcome to the 2016 All-Staff Training on the topic of Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, otherwise known as HIPAA. We hope this information is both informative and helpful in your day-to-day job responsibilities. Please pay attention to this presentation. We will review important information about your legal obligations to protect our patients' privacy and confidentiality. You need to understand this material because it's the law, and it's also the right thing to do. Additionally, we will be testing your comprehension as we go through the presentation. At the conclusion of this training, you will be able to demonstrate a basic understanding of HIPAA's privacy and securities principles, explain appropriate uses and disclosures of protected health information, understand your role in protecting our patients' health information, and finally, know who your resources are if or when you have questions about patient privacy and security. Complying with HIPAA privacy and security rules is not merely about following the law and doing the right thing. It's also about protecting our patients. Breaches of patient privacy and confidentiality not only affect a patient's dignity, but may cause them harm. When unauthorized protected health information is disclosed, it may result in stigma, embarrassment, and even discrimination for the patient. HIPAA breaches have even resulted in blackmail and medical identity theft, or when another individual uses the patient's name and health insurance to obtain medical care or prescription drug coverage for themselves. Without some assurance of privacy, patients or their caregivers may be reluctant to provide candid and complete disclosures of their medical history, which ultimately may impede the care we deliver to the patient. Ensuring our patient's privacy can promote effective communication between PHS and the patient or caregiver, which is essential for providing safe and high-quality care, and ultimately preventing embarrassment, discrimination, and even economic harm to the patient. Is United States legislation that provides patient data privacy and security provisions for safeguarding medical information. There are two components to HIPAA, the privacy rule and the security rule. The privacy rule establishes national standards for the protection of certain health information, while the security rule establishes a national set of security standards for the protection of certain health information which is held or transferred in electronic form. These standards apply to all covered entities. As you can see on the slide, there are three distinct groups of covered entities. Let's start with the first group, health plans. This includes most health insurance companies, including governmental payers like Medicare and Medicaid, as well as HMOs. The next group is healthcare clearinghouses. These are entities that process non-standard health information which they receive from another entity into a type of a standard. A claims processor is an example of a health clearinghouse. And then the third, final group would be healthcare providers. This is a pretty large group. This includes doctors, psychologists, chiropractors, dentists, clinics, nursing homes, home health agencies, DME companies, pharmacies, and then their associated workforce, such as nurses, allied health professionals, and office or support staff. Obviously, PHS fits into this third box as a healthcare provider and is subject, along with its workforce, to HIPAA's privacy and security rules, protecting the privacy and confidentiality of our patients' health information. Minnesota law goes a step beyond the federal HIPAA laws by requiring all patients or their legal guardians to sign and date a consent authorizing the release of their health records, unless, of course, otherwise authorized by law. PHS combines this with our home patient agreement, or our HPA form. As you can see here on the slide, the Protected Health Information Consent grants permission for PHS to share patient PHI. All patients, from a supply-only patient all the way up to a 24-hour nursing HCN patient, are required to sign a home patient agreement upon admission. Each patient and/or their caregiver is given a copy of the signed HPA to retain for their personal files. This is the Minnesota Access to Health Records Notice of Rights. It explains an individual's rights to access their health record and when certain information in their health record can be released without their consent, as required by law. For example, for specific health activities, or when health information about victims of abuse, neglect, or domestic violence must be released to a government authority, for health oversight activities, or for judicial or administrative proceedings, for specific law enforcement purposes, for certain organ donation purposes, or to stop the threat to health or safety, for research purposes approved by a privacy board, or for specialized government functions related to national security, for workers' compensation purposes, and in a medical emergency. This notice is located in the Care and Service booklet and is provided to all patients or their legal guardians upon admission to PHS. Before we review how we can use and disclose protected health information, or PHI, we really need to understand the definition. PHI is defined by HIPAA's privacy rule as individually identifiable health information, which is held or maintained by a covered entity, such as PHS, or its business associates, that is transmitted or maintained in any form or medium. This includes identifiable demographic or other information relating to the patient's past, present, or future physical or mental health conditions, or the provision or payment of healthcare to an individual that is created or received by a healthcare provider, health plan, or healthcare clearinghouse, the other covered entities we previously discussed. The privacy rule goes on to list 18 unique individual identifiers. Some of the more common identifiers to PHS are listed here, including patient names, addresses, dates of birth, admission or discharge, email addresses, telephone numbers, diagnosis, medical record numbers such as our CPR Plus numbers, health plan identification numbers, and full face photographs. Regardless of whether you work in the office or in the field, most of us work with PHI daily. It's all around us. As illustrated in the slide, PHI comes in a variety of formats: electronic, paper, verbal, and images such as photographs and videos. PHI is stored and transmitted in many electronic applications, such as our medical records, CPR Plus, our Insight modules, email accounts, on our smartphones, and even in our system folders. Then there's the plethora of paper, as we're not quite paperless yet. This would include things such as delivery tickets, SMNs, freeform orders, 485s, visit assessments, medical documentation from referrals, billing claims, and prior authorizations, just to name a few. Verbal communication can occur between you and the patient, their family, or other caregivers, as well as other healthcare professionals. Photographs may be obtained for continued care or marketing purposes, but keep in mind, because they can also identify the patient, they are considered PHI.